Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to set up a foot pedal to use with a Raspberry Pi running bare bones, to use with games like Time Crisis or Gunfighter, The Legend of Jesse James, where you can use a foot pedal to get yourself into the attack position to shoot and release the pedal to then go into cover and reload. Having a foot pedal to play those games is quite handy. You can use a button on the gun. That's the way it's set up by default, but you can also use a pedal and it reproduces that arcade experience. So I'm going to show you how to do that today, and I want to give some props to a Discord user called RP who showed me how to do this without having to use any kind of microcontroller. You can just wire a pedal directly to the Raspberry Pi and use some software called GPIOnext to assign the GPIO pins to keyboard keys or controller buttons, things like that. So thanks to RP for letting me know how to do that. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to check to see what pins we have available. So I'm looking at the Raspberry Pi Foundation website and the GPIO pin information of the Raspberry Pi 4B Plus, and I can see that there are two GPIO pins, numbers 24 and 25, with a ground next to it. I want to use two pins because I'm going to set up two pedals. Not really necessary to do two pedals on the Pi because there aren't really any games that you can use two pedals with, but for the sake of future-proofing this video, I'm going to show you how to do two pedals. So we want two GPIO pins and a common ground, and there just happens to be three pins right next to each other that have exactly what I need, and they're pins 18, 20 and 22, representing GPIO 24, a ground, and GPIO 25. Now, here's my Raspberry Pi. As you can see, I've got the low profile Ice Tower case on it. Let's see, I don't know how well that's going to show up on camera. Okay, so it looks like I'm using already a couple of pins at this end, but right in the middle where I need 18, 20 and 22, they're all vacant. Yep, that's good. Okay, excellent. You know what? I'm gonna plug in these jumper wires right now. That's 18. And 22. There we go. Now I've chosen to use red, white and blue, not because I'm patriotic, but because I tend to use red for player 1 and blue for player 2, and white is going to be my ground. You can use whatever colors you like. If you want to match the colors of your guns, then feel free to do so, depending on which way around you have your colors, or you can just use all the same color, whatever, it doesn't really matter. The color is not important, that's what I'm trying to say. So I believe I've got those connected to the correct pins. Okay, now I'm going to log into my Pi remotely, SSH in using PuTTY. Now you don't have to use PuTTY if your Pi is not networked. Well, it needs to be networked because you need to download the software package, but you can do it directly on the Pi with a keyboard. Just press F4 when in RetroPie and it will log you out into a command prompt. Now, if you've never done this before, the default password is Raspberry. Okay, so now we just need to download GPIOnext. into its own folder. Now I am connected to the network, and you need to be connected to the network in order to do this. Let's type this in. Git space clone space https://github.com/MOLGATEM/capitals GPIO and then lowercase next .git. Now in Linux, the casing of the commands you type in and locations that you use is important. Linux is a case sensitive, so ensure that all that's in lowercase with the exception of those letters GPIO. Let's hit enter and it's downloaded it. So now I'm going to enter that directory by typing cd space capital GPIO lowercase next. Yeah, and we're in there. I'm just going to have a look at the directory to see what's in there by typing ls. You don't have to do that. But it looks like we've got a bunch of files in there, and there is one called install.sh. That's the one we need to use. Now, as you can see, it's white, which means it's not executable, and we want to make it executable. Now, if you see a file that's green, that means it's executable, and names here that are in blue, they're folders or subfolders. So to make install.sh executable, we just want to do chmod plus x, chmod space plus x / install.sh. The / means it's the current directory that we're in. That's ls again, and it is green. Okay, so now we want to run it, and we want to run it with root privileges, so we have to run the command with sudo in front of it, and /install.sh, and GPIOnext should install. And here it is downloading extra files. Okay, that didn't take long at all. It only took about a minute. So it's asking us now, would you like to run the configuration manager now? And we do. We just want to go straight into it. So let's say yes. So here it's asking us which virtual device we want to configure. Now we want to use keyboard keys. The reason why we want to use a keyboard is because in bare bones, we've already configured it to use the keyboard key C to operate the Player One pedal. The reason why we chose C is because that's the default, the official Sinden pedal will be set to, unless you change it to something else. And the reason why the Sinden pedal is defaulted to C, I've been told, is because Mr. Sinden wanted to align it with what the main default for Time Crisis is. So it's going to be keyboard. We're going to choose, press enter to choose it, and then we get into this menu where we can choose which keys we want to assign. So we're going to scroll down and find C, press the space bar to put a check in the box, and we're also going to do the second pedal, and I'm going to use V for that. Now, Barebones doesn't have a Player 2 pedal assigned by default because really there aren't any games that use it, but for the purpose of future-proofing this video, I'm going to assign a second player, and I'm going to choose V. And the reason I'm choosing V is because I've been told by somebody that V is the main default for Time Crisis 2's Player 2 pedal. So that's what I'm going to use. And conveniently, in Barebones, V is not assigned to anything else. So it's vacant, and it's right next to C on the keyboard. So I'm going to press space to select V. So I should have C and V both selected, as you can see, an X in both boxes. So now we've chosen those two, we're just going to press enter, and GPIOnext will tell us to make the connection between the ground and GPIO pin that we want to use for C. So if I go back to my Raspberry Pi here and the jumpers that I've got, the red one is the one I want for player 1. So I'm going to touch these two for a few seconds, and that's done. And I'll just release it. And now it wants me to do V, so I'm going to get my blue wire and I'm going to touch those together for 3 seconds, and it's done. That is all complete. So let's just go down to exit. So now all we need to do is just reboot. Now I'm going to exit PuTTY and I'm going to reboot on the Pi because I've got it running. Always best to reboot safely. And we're going to restart the system. Okay, so my Pi is up and running again. Right, I think you can see that now. Just going to load up Time Crisis and we'll see if these pins work the way I want them to. And I've got my red gun plugged in and it's started up. Press button to start. Let's do arcade and a timed game just to get in quickly. And basic controls. The button still works. But let's see if these work. Absolutely fantastic. So pleased with that. Excellent. So now that we know that that works, I'm going to wire up the jumper cables to my pedal. Okay, so this Pi case that I'm using is one that I found on Thingiverse, which is just a basic Raspberry Pi 4B holder that is compatible with the so the low profile Ice Tower cooler. You can see it's quite a impressive thing. But there's not enough room in there for what I want. I've modified it slightly and made this one, which has a bit of extra height to allow space for these holes so that I can use these guitar jack connectors. Okay, you don't need to, you could wire the pedal up directly to the Raspberry Pi GPIO pins, but I want the option of being able to unplug them when they're not in use. So I've opted to use something that's readily available to me, and that is an instrument cable, a guitar lead, okay, which is basically, it's two connectors. There's a ground and a I don't know what you call it, a positive, I guess. There's two wires going through the length of this cable, and conveniently enough, they fit into readily available connectors. This happens to be a stereo cable connector. I only need a mono, but this is just what I happen to have lying around. But it works just as well. As you can see, there's a connection there, and the ground is all good. So I'm going to use those, and this is the pedal that I'm going to use. You can use any pedal, you can use a button, you can make one if you like, but this is pretty cheap and robust enough. I've got two of these. I've spray painted it red and the other one is blue, but this has this has 3 wires inside it. You've got the white for the common ground, and you've got a red one and a black one, depending on how you want it to behave. If you want it to be activated when you press it and deactivated when you release it, then you use the red wire, because that is NO, which means normally open. But if you want it to be activated while it's released and deactivated when you press it, you open the circuit when you press it, use the black wire, normally closed. It's not really good to use that for this purpose, so we'll keep it on red for normally open. And if you do want to swap the way it works, if you want to press the pedal to hide instead of attack in Time Crisis, there's a setting in the game that allows you to do that. So we're just going to use the red and the white wires. I've already wired this one up, so I can't show you that, unfortunately. I do have one that I haven't used here. So if you have a look, this is what it looks like on the inside. You just solder one wire to, let's see if I can get in closer so you can see it clearly enough. You solder one wire to the big tab at the back and the other wire to one of these side tabs. That's fine, and then you can clamp it down over the cable once it's done. Obviously make sure this is on the wire, on the cable before you do the soldering, so then you can just slide it up and screw it into place, and then you'll end up with one of those. Here's one I made earlier. But as for the other end, this is what I'm going to put into the case, and then a guitar cable will connect the two together. So I'm just going to solder those together now. I'll find my thing. Let's move these out of the way. Okay. Now, the ground for this is the center ring. So I want to solder one to the tab that's attached to the center ring, which is this one here, and I want one on the long tab, which is this one here. Okay. And I'm going to put I'm going to use these header connectors, just so that I can just attach the jumper cables straight to them. I'll take those off now. So now I've got the female ends. There we go. I'll just do that now, and hopefully it won't take too long. Okay, I think that's all my soldering done. Now, you noticed I soldered 2 headers to this one because I'm going to connect the ground to each other. Rather than have to use 2 ground pins on the Pi, I'm just going to make the ground connected between the 2 jack sockets. So I'm going to put this in my case. This is going to be player 1. Again, you can use whatever kind of connectors you like. If you want to wire it up directly to the Pi, then feel free to do so. You know, this is just the way I'm doing it. The most important part of this video really is knowing that you can use software like GPIOnext in order to look at that. most important information in this video is that you can use software like GPIOnext to make the assignment of the switch to the keyboard key that you need to use. But here I'm just giving you an example of how you can apply that practically. Just going to rotate that so they don't interfere with each other. Lovely. All right. Okay, so here's this. Why isn't it going? There we go. Okay, they all appear to be connected correctly. Let's just make sure. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Let's just put this in the case. Take the black bottom off. I've got a red one to match that. Now hopefully those wires won't interfere with the jacks when they go in. It's looking pretty good. Excellent. Let's just tuck that in there. That's okay. What I'll do, I'll redesign this case at some point so that fits in a little bit better. I made this quite quickly just for the purpose of the video. Now, yeah, that's the red one. That's my pedal connected. Let's plug in my Player One gun. Okay, so now we're plugged in. The Raspberry Pi is firing up. Let's move my soldering iron out of the way. Okay, now that that's all hooked up, before I go and test out Time Crisis, I'm just going to show you how to enable the second pedal in bare bones. If we go on into something like WinSCP, which allows us to access the file system of your Raspberry Pi, we want to go to the let's reconnect. We want to go to the opt RetroPie configs all folder, then choose retroarch.cfg. Now this is the file that has all the default controller inputs and all other settings for the RetroArch emulators. Now if I just search for C, you'll see that it is assigned to the input Player One gun OGS A setting. So what we want to do is find the same, but for player 2. So I'm just going to search for player 2, and there it is. So input player 2 gun aux A is null. And I'm just going to change that to V. And that's it. So that's all set up ready. And now I'm just going to launch a game of Time Crisis. I have my pedal ready and I have my light gun ready. And I'm just going to go to the PlayStation. Oh, that one. Okay. I might be a little bit close. There we go. Arcade, timed game, stage 1. Now, as you can see, pushing the button does the job, but also if I press this, there we go. We have our pedal. All we needed was just some kind of switch in the form of this pedal and just the Raspberry Pi itself. Didn't need to get any microcontrollers or anything, and I only used the guitar jack connectors because I wanted a way to plug and unplug. But you can wire them directly into the Raspberry Pi. You don't need to do anything particularly fancy. But hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully that was helpful to you, and I'll see you again in the next one. Goodbye.